I wanted to share a story with you quickly about how El Salvador just became a UN-endorsed family tourism destination. And it's because of this guy, Nayib Bukele. You may not have heard of him, but I want to tell you about him. Because El Salvador literally went from a murder capital of the world to a family-friendly tourism destination. And the way that that happened has implications for what's going on in the United States. Bukele spun up these crazy mega prisons, published these photos that are striking about gang members that have been imprisoned. He spun up a whole military to fight gangs and crime in El Salvador. And he had to fire basically all the top judges in the country and the attorney general, which at the time during the Biden administration, the US was like, no, don't do that. But I mean, it literally turned out that, like, for example, the anti-mafia judges, yeah, they were from the mafia. And I think what this shows us is that we can think about, like, what is a norm? Because, like, NPR says President Trump is breaking or ignoring all sorts of presidential norms. And when Bukele came in and basically fired all the judges and the attorney general from the country, that's definitely breaking a norm. And apparently he was trying to basically work with the gangs to get stuff under control in, like, verbal discussions. And he got so sick of it, it broke down, that he and the Congress of El Salvador passed this state of exception, which gives unrestricted powers to the security forces of El Salvador. And then a bunch of people go to prison because you have, like, literal armies of El Salvador targeting gang members and putting them in maximum security prisons. But I mean, look at what happened to the violent crime rate. I mean, that's how you go from murder capital to safe haven, right? And I just think this, like, breakdown of norms is kind of actually something that's happening across the world, because you could say, well, a norm comes from a time that is no longer here, from institutions that need to change. And you'll see this, like, so a lot of the left said that Bukele was committing human rights violations and not giving these gang members the right to due process. And it's really interesting to look at this in the United States, because we have a very similar situation with illegal immigration and deportations. So, for example, you have this left-leaning organization saying that due process matters for every American, including non-citizens. Funny language there. So I thought it'd be interesting to, like, look at this for a second. So Pew, which is a left-leaning research center, they estimate that in 2023, there were 14 million illegal immigrants in the United States. And if somebody gets deported, they are supposed to get this removal hearing, which will take about 3 hours. So if we use the Pew Research Center's estimates, which I think are probably a lot lower than what I've heard other places, let's just say half of these illegal immigrants, 7 million of them, were to get a formal deportation hearing. So 3 hours, that's 21 million hours of deportation hearings. 8 hours in a day, so that's about 2.625 million days that you need to do proper deportation hearings. Now, we have about 600 to 700 immigration judges, so that means that each judge needs to spend about 4,038 days doing these deportation hearings to give half of the conservative estimates of illegal immigrants due process. Again, doing a little math, if court was in session every day, which obviously it's not, that would take 11 years just to get through half of the illegal immigrants. And what I'm seeing is that there's just a lot of stuff in the United States that isn't working very well, and it's leading to people wanting people to break the norms. Just like what Bukele did to do this to violent crime. Of course, the left will call this autocracy, they'll use these powerful words like that. Maybe so, but other people will call it populism, because this stuff is really popular. And this isn't just happening in El Salvador in the United States. This is happening in Argentina with Javier Millei, in Italy with this woman, Giorgia Meloni, and lots of other places. So is our world just changing where we have a new set of norms that is emerging? Because the irony is that while some will say, oh, this is contempt for the law, what Bukele is doing to put these gang members in maximum security prisons, firing all the top judges, he maintains enormous popularity in El Salvador. I mean, took it from the murder capital of the world to a UN-designated family-friendly tourism destination. Pretty big change.